Good morning, everybody. Gary Furman and Matt Shodell here, and we are talking this morning about, I'm not going to call it a sudden departure, Matt, because we've been discussing it for weeks. It's been expected, but the possible departure, we'll throw that out because there still are some things that are not clear in the announcement that came out of Miami this morning. But we'll say the departure as offensive coordinator of Josh Gattis. And Matt, there's a lot to unwrap here. You have a coach who came to Miami as the Broyles Award winner. It seemed like a strong hire at the time when Mario Cristobal made the move about a year ago, almost to the day. But things just didn't go right at any stage of the process for Josh Gattis at Miami. It didn't seem like a great fit schematically. There were difficulties, I think, with the players, either understanding the schemes and or embracing it. I think that there clearly was a little bit of a disconnect possibly within the coaching staff when you look at the recent departure of quarterbacks coach Frank Ponce. And he and Gattis throughout the year never really seemed on the same page. And I'm judging that based on the way the quarterback position went the entire season. And there just seemed to be a disconnect there, just in the way the guys were performing. We saw incredible regression, not just from Jake Garcia, who's now at Missouri through the transfer portal, but Tyler Van Dyke as well got off to a horrific start to the season last year. They had injury issues on offense along the way. And obviously, when you're losing, that creates a lot of internal stress in a football program. And you put it all together, and it was just a miserable year for Miami on offense, for Josh Gattis, the fans, the media, and everybody in between. And thus, we get to this morning's announcement that Josh Gattis has been relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator. And the only qualifier we're going to make is that we do not know yet if that includes wide receiver coach, because wide receiver coach has not yet been mentioned by Miami in their announcement about the move today. So we can't assume that he has been fired, so to speak, because he could still be employed at Miami as receiver coach. Obviously, there's a lot of money that's involved here. If Josh Gattis gets his own job, Miami will save a significant amount of money on the buyout. So there are a lot of business factors involved here that might be going into the semantics of everything. But for now, we are just going to discuss the offensive coordinator part of the equation, Matt, and give us your thoughts on this morning's news.
It's terrible news to me. And the reason it's terrible news, this isn't about Josh Gattis. It's always about the Miami Hurricanes program, right? So fans that act like this is a good thing, no, this is a terrible thing. This is not good for Miami's program. This is not good for anybody. The fifth coordinator in 6 years. This has become a program that I don't understand why. It's just like spitting out coaches. The Broyles Award winner can't do it here. Like, Miami fans are saying, oh, Ken Dorsey for coordinator. Like, who wants this job? That's what concerns me. Because, like, from the outside looking in, it's great you got Tyler Van Dyke for a year. You certainly got some pieces on the offense. But, man, you look at the history of really good, promising coaches, offensive coordinators who are supposed to be the next step, was supposed to be a head coach. Dan Enos was supposed to be a head coach. This guy, Josh Gattis, was supposed to be the next step. He's only going to be here for a year, everybody. He's going to be the next head coach at some major program. Like, there's something not right, and Mario hasn't fixed it. The good news,
he's only been here a year.
Right.
It's obvious what's not right. What's not right is the personnel in the program is a disaster.
Well, look, you can blame Josh Gattis, but the truth is Mario Cristobal hired him. But the good news in that, the bad news is Mario hired him and it didn't work out. The good news is, unlike past head coaches we've seen who are very reticent to make changes, Mario's made the change right away. He didn't waste time. And yeah, fans think, oh, why didn't he fire him? Why didn't he do this right after the season? Why didn't he do this in the fifth game? No, that's not really how it works. You do want to have a process. You do want to have somebody in place to replace him. There's no rush to fire somebody when you have no replacement. I mean, what's the point of that? But now they are getting to that time where you got to start ramping up for spring football, which starts in a little over a month. You need a new coordinator who can actually have a playbook to teach the guys before the first practice, right? You don't just bring in a coordinator for the first practice and say, oh, just show them how to do it for 15 practices. It's going to be a process. It might be a difficult process, but I'm telling you right now, just like you and I think this is the last leg for Miami, like Mario is the last great hope for the Miami Hurricanes as a head coach after this plethora of coaches that come through, like this is the last great hope at offensive coordinator, because 5 and 6 years, if this guy doesn't work out, then that's an indictment on Mario, because now Mario hasn't just made one mistake in the offense, he's made another, and people will start blaming Mario for the offense. This guy who he hires has to be right. He has to get this right. There's no more room for error. He's been here over a year. He needs to get this right. And this coordinator better run an offense that's really, really suited for South Florida athletes that make them excited and make them want to play here, not what they saw with Josh Gattis.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of pressure on Mario on this one. Let's unwrap. You said a lot there, so let's unwrap some of it. You talked about the churn of coordinators through the years, and there's no question about it. Like from Dan Enos to Josh Gattis, it's been year after year after year. People struggled. Rhett Lashley had the appearance of getting it right, but I'll point out that Miami still didn't win with Rhett Lashley and the fancy numbers that he put up in his scheme, which is designed for that. It was a very simple scheme. It gains a lot of yards, but it's up tempo a lot of the times. The defense is on the field a lot more, and Miami still was not able to win. Manny Diaz got fired, but to me, and obviously this is a coach-player partnership. The roster at Miami has not been right for going on 2 decades now, and that is what Mario is here to fix. And it looks bad for Mario that he hired Josh Gattis, and in 1 year he's having to replace him. At the same time, and people are going to accuse me of defending Mario, but at least he's
defend Mario. Why would they accuse you of that?
Like, at least he's man enough to man up and say, I made a mistake and I'm going to fix this thing right now. I'm not going to sit here and be Al Golden, who rides 4 years with Mark D'Onofrio, and just watch my program continue to lose and lose and lose. He realized he made a mistake with Gattis. It was not a good fit in any way, shape, or form. And now he is adjusting to that. And I give him credit for that. I'm sorry. I mean, it takes a lot for some of these coaches to admit that they're not perfect, because they're not. And in the case of Mario Cristobal, you're talking about putting an entire organization together over the span of about a month or two, probably made 100 hires. You're not getting them all right. I don't care who you are. And often after first years, there's adjustments. I mean, after Jimmy Johnson's first year, when he was forced to keep Howard Schnellenberger's defensive staff, he had to remake his staff. Every head coach is making tweaks and adjustments every single year. So to me, Matt says this is bad news. I say this is good news. I think Mario's admitting he made a mistake.
What? Well, if you eat tainted food and then you throw it up afterwards, you say that's good news. It's good news that you threw.
Let me ask you a question.
Would you have tainted food? What great news! I threw up the tainted food. It's amazing. This is fantastic.
If Josh Gattis were coming back and everything was status quo, would you have hope for 2023? No. This is a positive move for the program. It's a positive move for Mario. He gets to now go on to the next guy and try to get it right. And we'll talk a little bit here in a minute about what that might mean. But, wanted to put up Joel Hogu's comment here. Mario struck out with his first OC hire. What did he miss? Well, I think that when he was out hiring an offensive coordinator last year, there was not a very big pool. And there were a lot of guys that he targeted. Ken Dorsey, I think he wanted very badly. Well, Ken Dorsey was getting elevated at the Buffalo Bills. It didn't make sense for him to come take the job. The coach at Toledo, Jason Candle, was a guy that was very high up on the list. And I think there were a lot of discussions there. That one didn't work out. And when Mario does these coach hires, he talks to a lot of people. Like, I'm sure he did at least 12 interviews for that OC hire the first time. And, I think Josh Gattis came recommended to him by Joe Moorhead, who was his offense coordinator at Oregon. And, Gattis had a relationship with Moorhead. I think Moorhead recommended him to Mario, and he had just won the Broyles Award as the top assistant coach in college football. And when you got to the nitty-gritty of the pool of candidates, it probably at that point made sense to give Josh Gattis a shot. But what did he miss in the hire? Well, I think, going by what we've heard throughout the year, I think player relations was a little bit of an issue from what we heard from many different sources throughout the year. The players didn't seem to bond very well with Josh Gattis. There was at least signs that there wasn't uniformity all the time, with the coaching staff necessarily. And these are all major elements of a hire that you don't always see at the beginning, and your interview process doesn't always take you down that path. And so, I would say if he missed anything, Matt, that's what I would point to. Yeah. But the schematic fit, like, look, I mean, you don't really know that till you're in the fray. I mean, I'm sure it was a shock that Tyler Van Dyke struggled early to adjust to Josh Gattis's scheme, and his production was very much diminished. But then in the same scheme, Tyler Van Dyke throws for almost 500 yards against North Carolina. So, sometimes we throw things out and fans throw things out and we just say stuff, but then you're hit with something that just doesn't make any sense. Like, how does he throw for almost 500 yards against North Carolina if the scheme sucks and the scheme's not good enough? So I just think, Matt, bad dynamics all over the place.
It's not just bad dynamics on the field. I mean, it's not funny. I don't even know how to describe it, but Miami attempted to send out a release this morning, and people are saying Josh Gattis was fired. Like, we just reached out before the show started to just confirm, is he fired? Because all their release said, and I'm going to read it, this is all Miami has sent out. This is all that anyone's going off of as of now, from what I understand. Josh Gattis has been relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator. Miami head football coach Mario Cristobal announced Friday. That's all the release says. It doesn't say fired. So, yeah, he's been fired as offensive coordinator. Has he been fired from the program? Are they going to pay him his buyout and everything else, and that's it? Like, it doesn't make that clear. Everyone's running with the fact that Josh Gattis is fired. We're still trying to confirm. I mean, here it is. This is what reporters do, right? It's 9:45 in the morning. This is just an hour old. We have not got confirmation that he actually has been fired to the point where he is, like, they sent an armed guard with him to get his belongings out of his office and, like, escorted him to his car and told all UM personnel that if they ever see him again to make sure he's not allowed on campus. I don't know if that's actually happened yet. Literally the only facts we have is that he will not be the offensive coordinator, so we'll see. Like, there's still an outside chance if he can't get another job, they don't want to pay his buyout plus hire a really good wide receivers coach. Like, maybe he has to be in a really awkward way the new receivers coach. I can't imagine that's the case.
I don't think that's going to be the case.
I have to think he's fired, but I don't think it's official yet, because they would have said they would have said Josh Gattis has been relieved of his duties as a University of Miami coach. That's what it would have said, not relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator, because he also was the receivers coach, right? He wasn't relieved of those duties. It's a very ambiguous and ridiculous release to not follow up with reporters and at least let them know what's going on if you're going to send out a release at all. That's right. You do media relations.
In fairness, and I'm going to balance this wrath of Matt Shodell that we're all receiving this morning.
Every morning.
This is what probably happened. The sports information office was probably like in the shower at 8:00 this morning, like all the rest of us, and probably got a call, put out a release that Josh Gattis has been relieved of his duties. It was a 1-sentence release. Okay, so in fairness, that probably did not happen with a ton of right. thought and time and all that. But listen, I know for a fact that Mario has been out shopping for coaches that include coaches that coach receivers. Okay, so I am personally assuming we can't report it like this because reporting things and facts are two different things. But I'm assuming there's going to be 2 new coaches on offense this year. There'll be an offensive coordinator who coaches quarterbacks, and there will be a new receivers coach. So everybody wants to know, Matt, who are they going to be now? We've moved on, and we will try to put a hot board together, but we'll get to that after the show. But wheelchair man here is throwing out Ken Dorsey. Now, guys, you got to use some common sense. Why would Ken Dorsey, who's the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills and had a very successful year in his first year as a coordinator, leave that job to come be the offensive coordinator at Miami? He's even being mentioned for head coaching jobs in the NFL. I'm not sure he's at that point of his career yet, but the people in the NFL love to throw away their $10 million bills and put guys in positions. You remember Rob Chudzinski, who had a great career as an offensive coordinator, who I'm sure is another guy that Mario would love to have on his list. But Chud is devoted to family up in the Northeast. I don't see that one happening either. But he lasted 1 season as a head coach in the NFL. There's a difference between being a coordinator and being a head coach, no doubt about it. So I don't think you'll see Ken Dorsey. Now, the receiver position might be a little bit easier to think about than the coordinator position right now. I see 3 former Hurricanes out there that are involved in coaching that I'm sure would want to throw their names in the hat for that job. Kevin Beard, who's at Toledo and has been there working under Jason Candle for a very long time and should have a very good understanding of Candle's passing offense, which elements of which make sense to bring to Miami. He's one. Obviously, Lamar Thomas would be interested in the job. He is currently serving as the assistant head coach of the Orlando franchise in the XFL that is about to start play. So Lamar might not be available, quite honestly. I know he's under contract to the XFL. So we'll see what happens there. And the other name I'm going to throw out is somebody that, might not be at the top of the radar necessarily, but is presently the wide receivers coach under Kyle Shanahan with the San Francisco 49ers. And that is Leonard Hankerson. And to me, right now, that one seems to make an enormous amount of sense. Kyle Shanahan is presently the guru, and there's always one, of the passing game in the NFL right now. You see what Mike McDaniel was able to do in his first year as head coach of the Miami Dolphins. And to me, bringing him in here now with a complete understanding of the Kyle Shanahan passing game, because he's been coaching it for the last couple of years, makes him a very live candidate for this opening as the receivers coach at Miami, if it makes sense for him. Now, he has a very good job right now. San Francisco, as you know, is having a lot of success. He's making a lot of money in the NFL because when you have success in the NFL, there's incentives for coaches. You not just get your coaching salary, but you're given bonuses and things like that. So I don't know if Mario, even if he decided he wanted to go look there, would be able to make that hire. It'll be interesting to see if that evolves at all. But I'm sure Mario's looking in the NFL. It does make sense for him to do that. He needs to bring an elite offensive coach into this program. The recruiting to me is important, but the way that he recruits, the way Alex Mirabal recruits, the way that they're able to staff recruit, when you're making this offensive coordinator hire, I don't see recruiting as being at the top of the priority list. The receiver coach has to obviously be able to recruit. So those are just a few guys that I think are going to throw their name in the hat potentially for the receiver job. The offensive coordinator job, much more wide open. I'm suspecting that NFL quarterback coaches are going to get a long look here this time around in the process. But Matt, I'm pretty certain Ken Dorsey's not going to be a candidate.
To me, look, I want Miami to be the next Alabama, the next Ohio State. Are those programs going to bring in a wide receivers coach from Toledo who happened to be a player there to be a first-time ever offensive coordinator, or a Leonard Hankerson who's only coached for 2 years as a position coach, period? at a high level to be the offense coordinator for the very first time. I don't think Alabama
No,
or
not
Ohio State.
offensive coordinator. I didn't say. I said.
Oh, you want them as wide receivers coach?
I'm a receivers coach.
Everybody's focused on the offensive coordinator, Gary, not the wide receivers coach.
Well, I'm focused on both. I think
okay,
they're both
so yeah, for the offensive coordinator position, you need to bring in somebody obviously who has a good track record, but also the type of offense, like I said, that excites Miami receivers. Now the problem is Mario did try to do that when he came in, and he couldn't. He did try to go after Ken Dorsey, for instance, and a bunch of guys, and he wasn't able to get them. You could say he settled for Josh Gattis, but you never really settle for a Broyles Award winner who has been an offensive coordinator before and coached at Michigan and Alabama. That's not settling. That's a win. He just happened to not run the kind of offense that you really want to run at Miami, especially coming off Rhett Lashley's offense. It's compared to Rhett Lashley, this was like 3 yards in a cloud of dust, what Josh Gattis was doing. It didn't make any sense. The hope was that Josh Gattis would adapt what we saw at Michigan. The idea was, okay, well, he did that at Michigan because at Michigan, all you had was great running backs, a great offensive line, and a very average quarterback. At Miami, he's got a great quarterback, not a great offensive line, not great running backs, but he never adapted. It was exactly 50-50 run pass last year, if you look, and it was like 60-40, if not more, with Rhett Lashley, if I remember what I wrote about that back at the time. But you want to bring in a coordinator who doesn't just have a great track record if he's running the wrong kind of offense. This is a problem Miami's had in the past where they bring in a coordinator that doesn't understand how to fit himself to the personnel. So I'm hoping Mario recognizes what Miami needs in a coordinator. Again, this is his last chance. You can't hire and fire 2 coordinators in 2 or 3 years. That reflects really badly, not just on the head coach, but on who's going to take the next job as the offensive coordinator when that's happened now. You're not going to get anybody of any quality. So this is it. He's got to get it right. He can't hire another guy who wants to be 50-50 run pass, slow the, not a fast-paced spread concept guy. I think Josh Gattis in his heart wanted to be spread concept. He just wasn't. So again, who are those guys that then would want this job? I think it's a pretty small pool, and I don't think Miami's going to, overpay at this point, unfortunately, to get that because they spent so much money last year just putting this staff together. Now they got to potentially pay Josh Gattis' buyout. I'm assuming they will because they're going to, I assume, fire him, like not just as an offensive coordinator, which is what they said so far, right? Fire him fully for everything that he does, and pay a new wide receivers coach who's got to be great. Like you mentioned, Leonard Hankerson's not going to be cheap. NFL coaches make a lot of money. Kevin Beard's not going to be cheap either, even though he'd be coming from Toledo. I mean,
I like Leonard Hankerson though. That's why I'm throwing that name out there. I like that one a lot, man. I
agree.
Just because of what he's been doing the last couple of years.
Well, I like the idea of Kevin Beard too, because people may forget Kevin Beard's an amazing recruiter. He will get every top guy from down here to Miami. Yeah. He has the connections down here with the coaches, with the 7-on-7 teams. I think Kevin Beard would be the win as the wide receivers coach. Now, we'll see if that happens. Because a lot of times you hire a new offensive coordinator, he's only got one open spot. A lot of offensive coordinators, if they're really good, they want more than just one of their guys to come in. So my guess is he will dictate who the receivers coach is and may try to even bring in, I don't know what you could bring in at that point. You're not going to replace the tight ends coach with the offensive line coach. So I don't know what else he could do. But they like to bring in their own guys. That's what offensive coordinators do. A lot of top guys are not going to take a job if they say, no, we just want you and none of the people that you've ever worked with before. That doesn't appeal to a lot of top.
Well, and you made a point. You did make a point, Matt, which I think is a good one. It doesn't have to be a former Miami player. I'm throwing those guys out because they're former Miami receivers and coaching, but it doesn't have to be a former Miami player. And you're right. A new coordinator might want to hire his own wide receiver coach, for example. And that could happen. Another name that could enter the discussion at some point is also James Coley. It's tough to go in that direction just because he was here with Al Golden and it didn't work out. And he also was fired at Georgia by Kirby Smart before he went to Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher. But things are a little rocky in Texas A&M. Things aren't going great. I could see James Coley being open to talking to Mario. They have a long-time relationship as friends and fellow coaches. James Coley was on Mario's staff at FIU at one point. So I don't know how that plays out with the fans and public relations, but that's a name I could see possibly. He would certainly be on our hot board if we make one. And so we'll see. All right, Matt, let's let's try to get to some of these questions that the fans are posting. Dan Gonzalez wants to know, why do we think Mario gets it right now when he got it so wrong a year ago? Here's what I would say to Dan. Dan, if you make a mistake on Monday, does that mean you're going to make the same mistake on Thursday? I mean, we're all human beings, man. We don't get everything right, and this one didn't work out. Doesn't mean he's going to mess up the next one. I mean, Mario has a pretty good record hiring coordinators and coaches. It's actually one of his strengths. If you look back through his head coaching time at FIU, a lot of those guys that he hired to come to FIU and make no money at a totally nondescript program went on to pretty good things. Coley went on to be a coordinator. Scott Satterfield was another one that went on. Todd Orlando has had really good defensive coordinator jobs since he left FIU with Mario. And there were more, but the point I'm making at Oregon, his coordinators all became head coaches. So, like, I don't get this, and I'll get accused of maybe overly defending Mario, but I also don't get this rush by segments of the fan base, if they really are Miami fans, to be hating on Mario either and taking such an antagonistic attitude towards him. I mean, he inherited an absolute disaster here, man. I mean, like, you're talking about a program that's going years without top draft picks and stuff. Like, I mean, like, the personnel level of Miami, and it's only because of the level of competition in the ACC that they're even able to win 5 games right now. I mean, it is not in a good place, and it's going to take a few years to build up this roster. Now, Mario, between recruiting and transfers, has turned, I don't have the exact number, Matt. You probably do better than me in your head, but like, it's something like 40 something out of 85 players. Like, he's turned half the roster in 12 months. So, he's trying to do this as quickly as possible. But like, anybody that expected this to be a finished deal here as we sit here in January of 2023 is absolutely totally delusional. Like, and I'm seeing constantly on our message boards and different shows and stuff, this I don't want to call it anti-Mario, but everybody wants to question Mario and rush to judgment on Mario. Mario's just getting started here. I mean, Matt, you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, well, I don't see people questioning Mario. I think what people will do is there's a perception out there, fair or not, that Mario prefers to win games using his offensive line, which only makes sense. It's probably the perception because he was an offensive lineman. He does tend to coach the offensive lineman in practices instead of wandering around the field like a normal head coach. So yeah, I think that Mario probably feels like he knows his offensive lineman best and he trusts his offensive lineman more than anything else, and that if they need to get 1 yard to win a game, he's going to run the ball, probably up the middle.
He wants to beat the crap out of people, but
correct. So that's
the usually with that Bama, Matt, they threw the ball.
On, you asked me a question.
No, but I'm going to stop. I'm just saying they threw the ball very successfully in the years that he was at Alabama coaching those great offensive line.
Okay, but your question was about Mario, and the reason there's the perception is people think Mario wants an offense that just grinds out games. Win by 3 points, win by 4 points, run the clock, win the time of possession. That's the perception out there on what Mario wants. So they're sort of lumping in what Gattis did, and they think, oh, behind the scenes, this is also what Mario wanted, which I think there probably is a modicum. You can look that up in the dictionary, Gary. There is a modicum of truth to that because we know that Mario wants a physical, dominant offensive line that can pass protect really well and that will beat the heck out of you up front. So when an offense fails and the offensive line failed, and when your head coach was personally coaching that offensive line, and when the head coach also had a say for sure in the offense and the game plan, because that's what head coaches do. They don't call the plays on game day, but the week before the game, they are very involved in helping sculpt the general game plan on offense and on defense, depending on their strengths. So yeah, that's why people are questioning Mario, and it's okay to question Mario because you know what? He's the head coach. It comes with the territory. It comes with the job. But like Gary said, you have to give Mario the benefit of the doubt. He's turned things around at Oregon. He's turned things around at FIU. He's coached at Alabama. He knows what a championship team should look like, and he's working his darndest to get Miami there, you have to give the guy a chance to do it. He recognized a failure, whether it was on his part or on someone else's part, with the hiring of his first offensive coordinator at Miami, and he rectified it. So now we got to see what happens next. This hire, to me, will determine if Mario Cristobal can turn Miami into a championship team or not. Because if this offensive coordinator is the wrong hire, is the wrong fit, if Jeremiah Smith and Josiah Trader go somewhere else, if they can't get top recruits to come here with a new offensive coordinator who are the top prospects in Florida, it's going to be a failure whether the guy runs the right offense or not. So you got to get the right system, get the right guys, and then get it going. You got to stack classes. You got to take free agents instead of transfers. And that's the formula. Like, I love what he's doing outside of taking transfer portal guys that may not be great, who will be here multiple years. Outside of that, I've got no problems with anything that Mario's done so far, because he inherited a roster that was inherently, you can look that word up too, inherently problematic.
All right, Andy May's days wants an OC with an explosive passing game, and just an extension of what you were just talking about. A lot of people want to typecast this Mario Cristobal offense. Okay, first of all, Mario's never been an offensive coordinator. Okay, there is no such thing as a Mario Cristobal offense. Mario Cristobal definitely has a philosophy that to be a championship football team, you must be able to run the football. Okay, and I would agree with that. Like, if it's 3rd and 1, you have to be able to pick it up. But in today's football, you also have to be able to score a lot of points. You can't just be ground and pound. The offenses are too good. The coaching has become too good. And the schemes have become too good. So Andy Mayday's wish list for an offensive coordinator with an explosive passing game, I would say is certainly spot on. Norm Smith's pointing out that Gattis was not Mario's first choice. I think that's fair. Sure. I think that's certainly fair. Angela James points out, says Mario did not make a mistake. The guy won the Broyles Award. We all would have hired him. It just didn't work out with Gattis. I'm happy he's gone, but give Mario cred for not keeping him. And I already said that earlier, Matt. Most of these coaches are really stubborn, man. They don't like to admit they made mistakes. They don't like to be exposed like this. They don't like to be standing there naked like you screwed up your first hire. They don't want to wake up on a Friday morning and have Matt Shodell screaming at them, basically, like you were at the beginning of this show. It's not a happy place to be as a coach, but you give him credit because he's correcting it. And Andy Mayday points out that there's a guy named Cliff Kingsbury who is available. I don't know if anyone's going to find him. Last I heard, he went to Tahiti or something and was hiding because he doesn't need to work. He's going to be paid probably, I think it was $10 million a year at least or something for the next 5 years by the Arizona Cardinals. So, like, this guy doesn't need the offensive coordinator job at Miami for sure. But if you could hire him, that would be good. Let's see. Vic Vassell throws out the name Brian Johnson. Matt, he's a guy who was a candidate the first go round, NFL coach. I don't have his resume in front of me, but I'm remembering from a year ago that, he had a decent background as a coach in the NFL. Maybe he does get back into the mix. Another name that Avery Lopez has thrown out here, Joe Brady. Everything I heard a year ago was that Joe Brady doesn't want to come back to college football, that he wants, doesn't want to recruit, wants to be in the NFL. But, I think Mario did have some conversations with Joe Brady last year also.
Let me ask you, Gary, is this a dream job for an offensive coordinator right now who's a high-level offensive
No, it's not a dream job for an offensive coordinator yet. They still have to, you're bringing in Ray and Robbie Washington. I think that will add a little explosion to the offense this year. You got guys that can make big plays. They were hoping Brashard Smith could be that kind of guy, but he's just not that level of explosion as I think we'll see from these guys. Not that he won't play some, but they need a Roscoe Parrish, Santana Moss, that type of guy that can change a game with his speed and explosion. I think they got two guys with the potential to be that. Coming into the offense, but I think they still need more. Tight ends in a decent place, but Jaleel Skinner, did not show up as good as everybody thought he was going to be as a 5-star coming in. He struggled catching the football. So time remains to tell where his career is going to go. The O-line is going to be very, you got some very good freshmen. They're freshmen. So no, Matt, it's not a dream job.
Well, let me I do agree with you. There's a lot of question marks, but let me add this too. If Mario can make the right hire, a college, a high-level college coordinator, there's, in this current day and age, first of all, you better hope Tyler Van Dyke likes this person, because there's a second transfer portal window. Okay, so anybody, if this offensive coordinator comes in and isn't using the tight ends the way the tight ends like, I mean, he has to please everybody now. There's no such thing as a dream job anymore in college football, period. Like, it was a trick question, Gary Furman, because there is no more dream job for a coordinator on either side of the ball, because you have to make everybody happy or they'll just leave. But on the flip side, on the flip side, if you get the right coordinator, right, if you get even an up-and-coming guy from a top program, he can bring, in this portal era, some free agents with him in that second window after spring ball, where maybe they're a part-time starter, maybe they're a former 5-star redshirt freshman, whatever it is, right? That guy's now coaching here. He has a great relationship with 5 or 10 offensive players at his previous stop. You immediately upgrade your roster with free agents this way. So I'm hoping Mario is looking at that as well, because that is something that nobody thinks about. But it's a huge factor in this day and age of transfer portal / NIL deals / wild east, west, north, south, northwest, southwest, etc.
So we're seeing all kinds of names being thrown out in the YouTube comments, but Reggie Wayne, Vic Vassell wants Reggie Wayne. I mean, he's another one like Hankerson. He's an NFL wide receivers coach. They're very well compensated. I don't know if Mario could get him interested. If he could, obviously, you would definitely want a Reggie Wayne for he brings obviously an enormous amount to the table. So some of these comments are pretty funny. There's no winning with Canes fans. T. West says, have to trust the process, let it play itself out, give him time. Does Mario have time, Matt? Like, Mario wants to win, man. Like, people like you and I argue about this on Good Morning CaneSport constantly. Like, stay away from the transfer portal. You say, don't bring in guys. Like, you think Mario don't want to go 5-7 again? He'd rather go 9-3 than 5-7. So, like, I think Mario probably feels the pressure of time as much as anybody. You're willing to give him time and sacrifice another year or two.
No, I'm willing to do this or that. I mean, don't tell me where to eat. Don't tell me what I'm thinking. What I believe is the way to winning a national championship within 2 or 3 years. What I believe that formula is stacking recruiting classes and not taking transfers just for depth, just so you can practice. I don't want to just take up spots on the 85-man roster in the 2024 class because you're taking a sophomore or junior as a transfer who is maybe going to compete to start, maybe be a slight upgrade, but isn't a championship level player. That's all I ever say, because I know what a great recruiter Mario is. And I think he did a great job in recruiting this year. Next year, again, is unlimited numbers up to the 85 limit. There's no 25 limit. There's no can only replace 7 transfers, or is it 8, whatever it is, that leave to come in. It's unlimited for the last time in 2024. So he has a huge opportunity. There's only 8 seniors leaving. Maybe there'll be some juniors to go pro early. But I don't want him only taking 11 or 12 guys. And you can't kick another 20 guys off the roster because he's already pared it down. Yeah, there's another probably 10 guys I could list that probably aren't going to be great. But 20 is pushing it a little bit. So once you take a transfer, you can't get rid of them very easily because it's saying to them goodbye, you can't graduate college, because they can't, unless they've already graduated at Miami, because that's just the rule. That's the stupid NCAA rule. You can only transfer once, and that's it, and then you're stuck. So, it's not a great situation to take transfers, that aren't one and dones. That's all I've been saying all along. You want them to win 8 or 9 games now by taking transfers who are like slight upgrades or can help them practice or whatever. You have an open spot, great, let's take a transfer. Well, if it's a one and done, okay with me. but not if they're back again taking a spot in 2024 out of the 85 roster limit. That's all I've ever been saying.
So what do you think Josh Gattis is thinking, through all this? He's like probably sitting there saying, I can't believe these mofos are scapegoating me for everything that happened this year. And there's a million excuses that he can whip out in his next job interview for sure, between all the injuries and everything. But there's a bottom line to this, Matt. You're talking about Miami that was 96th of 131 FBS teams this year in running the football, 60th in passing offense, with what was supposed to be, obviously Tyler had his injury problems, but it was supposed to be a decent quarterback situation with Tyler and Jake, certainly. And it didn't play out that way. 86th in total offense with 367 yards a game, which is almost 100 yards a game less than what Rhett Lashley was putting up. And every offensive measurable that you look at, red zone offense, scoring, anything you want to look at, Miami, it was in the bottom third of college football. And man, when you're that bad at Miami, and I'm sure he's, very frustrated at getting fired, but you don't have beefs, man. He was he's a millionaire. He's making a lot of money, and he'll be fine, and he'll go get another job or whatever. But I don't think Josh Gattis has any beefs with Mario Cristobal or anybody at Miami about being treated fairly or whatever. He underperformed.
Am I supposed to start talking?
Go ahead, man.
That's how you just
haven't we worked together long enough that that I'm lobbing you softballs, that I am setting you up?
I don't even remember what you were talking about, but
I'm talking about Josh Gattis
that he has nothing to complain about. Why are you even bringing that up? Like, just because he complained on his way out of Michigan, that doesn't mean he's going to complain on his way out of Miami, does it? I mean,
I can't remember if we were talking privately or on this show, but you mentioned, that it could get messy, that his exit from Michigan was not very pretty.
That was a very, very private conversation, Gary. So now let's talk about what you said about your wife. I thought it was very unfair what you said about her, right? Was that on the show or was that privately? I can't remember that either.
I think T-Love sums it up pretty well, man. Junior high offenses had more complexity and imagination. T-Love, I don't know that complexity is the right word, though. I mean, if anything, it might have been too complex in some ways for some of the players on the team to pick up as quickly as they were expected to pick it up. A lot of mental busts in executing the offensive plays, receivers running the right routes, things like that. Guys were not spending enough time in their playbooks, quite frankly, to be totally honest. I think that was a big problem last season in general. I think there was a culture problem that Mario's having to clean up. I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these departures that you've seen in the last month or two. A lot of them, I think, are aimed towards cleaning up the culture. There's a lot of influences that young people have in this world today that maybe some of these guys were succumbing to a little too much. And I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And, listen, I mean, this is a big job. It is a big task ahead for Mario Cristobal. But Matt, as we wrap this up, I think that we are in agreement. Well, I mean, you actually kind of disagreed at the beginning of the show, but this was necessary, I'll say. I won't say whether it's good or bad, but I'll say it was necessary for Mario and the Miami program to move on to the next step.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, somebody was posting a question who I would want the offensive coordinator to be. I will throw out there this. Personally, I know James Coley. I think he'd be a good fit, personally. But that's just personally. Much brighter minds than myself. If there's like 2 or 3 of them in the world, we'll be making the decision. But I will throw this out there because I don't know if people are aware of this. T. Martin's son is on the baseball team, and he wants to be a 2-sport athlete. They're not using him as a quarterback. Miami football team wasn't interested, but who knows? T. Martin, he has been a coordinator, and his son is on the baseball team at the University of Miami.
Definitely a name to keep in mind. No doubt about it. There's a long list. Like, we'll put together a hot board just for fun, but it's, you could go anywhere, man. There's so many coaches in the NFL that might be ready for an opportunity like this that, aren't necessarily coordinators yet, but coaching quarterbacks.
I mean, like people are just throwing out names with no information. Like, here's who we think would be great. Like, that's not what we do. We try to get
if there's too many names you could throw out.
Yeah, you could throw out 100 right now. It's a little ridiculous.
But there are a lot of Ken Dorseys of the world out there that are quarterback coaches in the National Football League, ready for the next opportunity, that maybe could be interested in this job. I would look a little bit there. I would be surprised. Jacoby Graggs is freaking out about James Coley. James Coley, from a knowledge of offense standpoint, from all his experience, would probably be fine. I just don't know that Mario goes there. It's very tough.
The reason I say James Coley, by the way, is because you can shoot for the stars, but I'm talking realistically who Miami can get. Miami's not getting, obviously, Ken Dorsey. Miami's not getting really, really top offensive coordinators. Like, that's just not where this program is right now, unless you want to throw a ridiculous amount of money at them, guaranteed for numerous years, which they're not going to do. So I'm talking a realistic offensive coordinator who I think would do well and would be a great recruiter, knows the area. That's just happens to be James Coley, and he knows what a winning championship program should look like.
The problem is, Mario's trying to recruit the best of the best and go out and battle with Alabama and Georgia for the best players in the country. And you hire James Coley, Kirby Smart gets to tell every recruit, he was a horrible offensive coordinator for us. We had to fire him. And that's a tough thing to battle in recruiting. So I don't know. Yeah, and by the way, Kirby Smart did not do right by James Coley. He used James Coley to deflect from himself. And, James Coley was not the reason Georgia wasn't quite ready to win the national title yet. And they haven't won the national titles because James Coley got run off as offensive coordinator. I'll flat say that wasn't right. But anyway, so I think that we'll conclude our CaneSport Right Now discussion on the removal of Josh Gattis. I'm picking my words carefully just in case there's something crazy going on. We know we got to be responsible reporters. Obviously, we do not expect him to be the receivers coach either. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Furman. Thank you so much for joining us once again today. If you like this content, like our YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. And if you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, come take advantage of our $29.99 special that'll take you up to the start of the next football season. We would love to have you as part of our great community of Hurricane fans. Have a great day, everybody.